Welcome to Fight News Now Extra. I'm John Pollock, and we've got all of today's headlines to round out the week, and then Robin Black will be stopping by. In the news today, another Pettis is fighting December the 6th. Henderson eyes a top middleweight, and Mayhem Miller is back in the news, and that isn't typically a good thing. We start with Jason Mayhem Miller, who was arrested on Thursday following a 3-hour standoff from his home in Orange County, California. Authorities had an outstanding felony arrest warrant for Miller, which includes charges for domestic violence, stalking, and violating a court order. Miller is now in custody, and bail is set at $200,000, with Miller set to appear in court next Friday. Fresh off his win over Anthony Njokuani, Darren Cruickshank will be back in the octagon on December the 12th when he meets KJ Noons in a battle of strikers. Noons has won his last 2 fights with wins over George Soteropoulos and Sam Stout. This will also be the final fight on Cruickshank's tough contract, which he signed back in 2012. Dan Henderson and Ronaldo Jacare Souza are angling for a fight in 2015, with Henderson stating he would love to have the fight at middleweight on January the 3rd of next year. Jacare is coming off a second operation on his elbow this year following his most recent win over Gegard Mousasi from last month. Henderson last fought at UFC 173, where he was soundly defeated by Daniel Cormier. And Sergio Pettis, the younger brother of lightweight champion Anthony Pettis, has been added to the same card as his brother, according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, as he will meet Matt Hobar in bantamweight action on December the 6th at UFC 181. Pettis has posted a 2-1 mark inside the UFC since his debut last year and is coming off a unanimous decision victory over Yautzin Meza earlier this year. Hobar is 1-1 with his UFC campaign, with a win over Aaron Phillips in his last outing. And I'm here with Robin Black as we send you off into the weekend. Lots of things to discuss here. An unfortunate story involving Jason Mayhem Miller. It typically is when we hear about Jason Mayhem Miller, it's not good.
Yeah, Jason Mayhem Miller, I think it seems he has a mental illness. And if you have family or friends or family members, anybody that has ever had any kind of mental illness, it's really not that different. You treat it similarly to having a broken leg or a skin disorder or an ulcer or whatever. You treat it with medicine and you make sure that the person is taken care of and they're medically treated. And sometimes guys, they end up not taking their medication, or the medical treatment doesn't quite take at certain times, and then they have unfortunate situations like this. You feel really bad for this guy. This is a good fighter who, you know, was driven and accomplished a lot in his life, and he has these moments where he's ill.
As we move over back into the fighting world, I guess the most interesting one there was Dan Henderson, who Jacare was saying he was willing to come up to 205 to fight Dan Henderson. He was like, hey man, how about I come down to 185 and meet you and we fight on January the 3rd. This is a fight that concerns me if you are Dan Henderson. I think that there are certain fights he can be taking. I don't know if Jacare is one of those fights.
Well, we're going to find out, maybe. I mean, are we? Are they going to make it? I don't know.
Is it a fight you want to see?
I think I want to give Dan the benefit of the doubt. If Dan Henderson is looking at a fight and going, I can take this guy. Everybody's going to underestimate me, but I can take this guy. Let's give him one more shot at that. You know, because has Dan Henderson looked like Dan Henderson in his last couple fights? He hasn't. Can he still? There's still a maybe, and he's probably earned the right to try to take a run at it. But, you know, Jacare's young and powerful and shredded and muscular and talented. And you know, he has skills in areas that make a guy like Dan Henderson in trouble. But Henderson watched that last fight, saw his takedown approach, figures maybe he can stay on the outside and land the H-bomb. And maybe he's right. It's
funny how January the 3rd is a date that just every fighter is available for this card that is going to feature Jones and Cormier, probably will feature Ronda Rousey and Kat Zingano, and every other fighter on the roster. Hey, I'm available January the 3rd. I can make it onto that card.
Yeah, this is called the Chael Sonnen effect, because Chael Sonnen quite recently has released, or during an interview, talked about, you know, the keys to his success. A couple of them were very simple when you look at them. Make sure you got a name in mind so that they're looking at you going, oh yeah, let's make that fight, and it's a name you like. And call guys out on big cards. And those couple of things, people would have looked at that tape and been like, yeah, this Sonnen guy, he's on to something. Okay, when's the next big one? Oh, January 3rd. Yeah. I want to fight John Pollock on January 3rd. Like, everybody's using his approach.
You and me would be headlining, Robin.
Yeah.
They would want to get onto our card.
That's
I think
right.
would be the case. But I think that that's a smart strategy that a lot of fighters, I think, are really starting to understand here. If I'm Rafael Assunção, I want to be on that same card as Dillashaw and Cruz so that at the end of the night, I have a good performance and I have hopefully a sizable audience that there's the next contender who I want to see fight the winner.
For sure, man. Sonnen has done a lot of brilliant things in his time, but man, did he make that sound simple. You know, he just made it sound so simple. Make sure people hear you. Make sure people are aware of what you're doing. Make sure the audience is interested in you and get on big shows. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, let me try that. Makes sense.
Also, Darren Cruickshank, KJ Noons has been inked for later on this year. 2 strikers. I don't think that we're going to need any kind of ground analysis for this particular one. These dudes are going to stand up for 15 minutes and trade strikes.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is Darren showed some wrestling in his last fight, and he is a good wrestler. It's part of why his game works the way it does, that traditional martial arts game, because his wrestling is so good, it makes him a little unique. But guys like that love that challenge. And also, guys who throw a lot of offense leave you opportunities to throw offense. And you're right. Cruickshank may think he can out-wrestle Noons, although Noons has shown fantastic takedown defense. So that might be a wash. They'll stand in there. You got spinning kicks here and body shots there. It'll be a lot of fun. That's
what are you looking forward to this weekend? It's a non-UFC weekend, but nonetheless, Michael Page, very fun fighter to watch just because of his unorthodox style, taking on Nishan Burrell. We've got Eduardo Dantas, Joe Warren, that's on Bellator, and then World Series of Fighting hitting Edmonton on Saturday night, which will be airing in Canada late Saturday night.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how Ryan Ford does. This guy is a very special fighter, and this is his biggest fight. Jake Shields is nobody to underestimate, so that's a great fight. But Monday here in Canada is our Thanksgiving, so we're not working Monday morning. So normally I'd be breaking down fights all weekend. This weekend instead, I'm going to go visit my wife up in Sudbury, who's one of the leads in Rocky Horror, see her performance there.
Maybe you can give us a breakdown of the Rocky Horror Picture Show next week.
I shall.
All right, well, Canadians have a happy Thanksgiving. Americans, just enjoy whatever you do on a Saturday and Sunday. We'll be back next week with more of Fight News Now Extra coming your way right now.